morning and welcome to The Point. It is Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20, and good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5 or 105.9. It is Wednesday, the day we facilitate representatives of the government. This morning I am expected to be joined by Minister of Health Nickolas Steele, but he is running just a little bit late and he is expected to join the program in a few minutes. So we are going to start with, I don't want to call it an open line. We're not just going to spread the topics far and wide. What I'm going to do in the meantime is take some of the questions that you may have for the minister. So when he joins when he joins the program, I would be able to ask him on your behalf. So I'm just going to open the phone lines in the meantime to take questions to be posed to Minister Steele when he joins the program. Landline 435-2041. WhatsApp, it's also 435-2041. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. And you can also post your questions on Facebook and YouTube as well. Let me take the first question from this caller. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Blossom.
Morning.
Not directly I call you to give thing now, but what I was trying to call in since yesterday, but I couldn't get you to tell you we found the dog.
Oh, okay, good. Good
yes,
to know.
Okay, so I was just trying to call you.
Great. Thank you. All right.
Okay, bye. Okay.
Good to know that you found the dog, a missing dog that was reported yesterday. Good to know that they found him or her. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, Blossom. How are you doing?
I'm good. How you do?
Be quiet, man.
All
I
right.
just want to ask the minister this morning. I realize they have a new fee, a COVID fee for doing surgery in the general. So I want to find out why and so much. $410. I have a good friend. She have a 4-year-old child. Have to do a hernia, do a surgery. And it's really tough on her. And the doctor tell her she has to pay the $410 before the child get the surgery. So could you ask him for me, please, why?
So the $410 is for the surgery?
For the COVID test.
Oh, the
and
COVID.
then the surgery is $275.
Oh, so she has to do the COVID test before getting the surgery?
Yeah, so I want to know why this test,
Okay, no problem.
So you'll ask him for me, please.
No problem.
Have a good day.
You too. All right. Got you, caller. If you have questions for Minister Steele that you would like for me to ask him when he joins the program, now is your opportunity to do so. So as he joins, we can get right into it. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Auntie Beth.
Morning, Ms. Jacob. How you do?
Well, Miss Gola, dear, all right for the time being.
Good.
I wanted to remind Doc about the visiting station in Westerhall. And now the rain coming, those senior citizens, they don't have to go so far to get, sometimes they have to go along foot by foot and don't go so far. If they could put a bus shed, by where they have the garbage bin there, if they put a bus shed there, that would be nice. And if they could fix up the visiting station for us, put some more blocks, and if they could extend, if they could put some veranda, and then they put some seat for those senior citizens, sorry for those senior citizens.
No problem. Okay, no problem.
Auntie Blossom, you have a wonderful day. Mommy, good morning, sweetheart.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jacob. Enjoy your day as well.
Okay.
All right. All right, before we go back to the landlines, let me check the YouTube and Facebook pages. All right. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom.
Morning. How you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. How you do?
Not too bad. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much. Many happy returns.
Okay, this one is for the minister. I'm very concerned about the medical station at Mount Reach. Mr. Minister, please help us. Hermitage, Arisotes. And if we don't have the money, we cannot get there. Please, Mr. Minister, give us a help. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Day.
You too. you enjoy your day as well. For those of you just joining the program, we are expected to be joined by Minister of Health, Honorable Nickolas Steele. He is running just a little bit late, so in the meantime, I am taking some questions that our viewers and listeners would want to ask him so that when he joins, we can get straight into the conversation. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blaster. Happy New Year. How are you?
Morning, I'm good. Many happy returns.
I'm calling from Nickolas again.
Oh, my. Hold on, wait. It didn't fix or it fix?
No, up to this time, well, now it's like a river.
Jeez. Has anybody spoken to you, visited you for the last few weeks or so?
Postwader came, he said he heard me on the radio and he come and look at the place. He came on the TV and talked about it. Mr. Steele come and say that as the COVID is so tied up. How could he be so tied up? I don't understand that. He has to send somebody to do the work. The COVID make him tied up, so we need people to. I mean, I don't understand the sort of stuff. And like it's getting worse now, the rain come and make it worse. If children play night in front of yesterday, I have to run the children to this is dangerous for your health. Move on, my please. I don't understand this at all.
I will remind him again. No problem. Thank you so much.
Have a blessed day.
You too. Wow, we go through the whole Christmas with it. My heart hurts sometimes. And it's situations like these that cause it to hurt. Somebody on the WhatsApp wants me to ask the minister when they will repair the Mount Morris Medical Station. Let's take a quick break. The minister is calling. Let me take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and hopefully he'll be able to join the program then. Just let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Grenada's chief medical officer has ordered that all confirmed positive COVID-19 individuals, their contacts, and members of their household must remain in quarantine or isolation for 14 days. Anyone who fails to comply with this order will be in breach of the Public Health COVID-19 Regulations 2020 and is guilty of an offense. Upon summary conviction, that person will be liable to a penalty of up to $10,000. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Careless or intentional bushfires, dead out. Youths, hunters, smokers, let's prevent bushfires. Here's why.
Yeah, bushfires. The shorelands wet, crops should be bushfires. Can lead to food scarcity, threatened biodiversity, cause water shortage, water calamity. Bushfires in watersheds deplete water quality, threaten property, life and security. Bushfires set intentionally, water insanity.
Bushfires can cost millions in losses annually and are often caused by careless or intentional actions indictable under the law. Forests are life-giving. Save them. A message from the Fire Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force and the Caribbean Open Trade Support.
Welcome back to The Point. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who just joining us and those of you who stuck with us, thank you so much. We are now joined by Minister of Health, Nickolas Steele. Good morning, Minister Steele.
Good morning, Blossom, and good morning to all of your viewers and listeners.
Hope everything is well considering the current COVID climate, I could call it?
As best as possible. It's a beautiful day in Grenada, a little showers or blessings just passed, but still the sun is out.
Fighting with the rain. All right, so let's get right into it. I know you facilitated post-cabinet briefing yesterday, and maybe you can just briefly summarize some of the things that were highlighted yesterday. And then I've also taken some questions from our viewers and listeners, and we'll get right to that as well.
Yes, well, to summarize, I would say that we still remain, as of yesterday evening as well, no new cases. All of our current active cases are travel related. That is, individuals who have come into Grenada are in quarantine, and while in quarantine tested positive, so they remain in isolation. Moving forward, the curfew will remain as is for the next 2 weeks. That's from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. If there's any change in that, we will make an announcement to the nation. And that we look with concern to our borders to the north and concern to our neighbors. They're in our thoughts and prayers, those to the south, to the north, and to the east in Barbados. And we understand that they are going through their trials and tribulations. Now things are serious in those countries. They are making the necessary steps as best as possible to fight off COVID-19. Some of them do have community spread, and it's something that we don't want to get to. Our current position has come at great cost to us as a government and to us as a people individually. I'm very much aware of tremendous sacrifice that individuals have had to make, and the tremendous price that some individuals have had to take. But I think what we need to recognize is what little we have, or however bad it is right now, we don't want it to get worse, and therefore we must take the necessary steps.
One of the latest developments that I wanted to highlight, our regional counterparts, countries in the region, we're seeing some of their countries' cases are ballooning. I read a report this morning of St. Lucia at 969 overall cases. We see St. Vincent as well dealing with over 20 per day. Yesterday or last night, Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley announced some new measures to curb the spread in Barbados. And looking at how the COVID-19 situation is unfolding in the Caribbean compared to how Grenada has handled it, how do you think this would affect the wider region? These individual countries are dealing with the effects, but by and large, it affects everybody in the Caribbean. How would this affect us?
Well, we are all interconnected, Blossom, and we are one Caribbean family, one CARICOM family. So for the overall economic situation, for the overall health and well-being of the region, it concerns us. Each individual nation, while we are a CARICOM group, we must do our own part within our means to fend off COVID. So in Grenada, by the grace of God, the decisions we've made and the sacrifices of our people, we are where we are right now, which is it's not an extremely comfortable position, but we are more comfortable than some of our brothers and sisters elsewhere. And as such, we need to value that. So the impacts, there are going to be repercussions with respect to travel. The region, while we are independent nations, the region is seen as a Caribbean region. So we are part and parcel of the reputations of each and every one of our individual countries. So that's why they are in our thoughts and prayers. I think we need to stand with each other, regardless of our individual situations, and ensure that as a group we move forward. For instance, with vaccination, to ensure that the entire CARICOM region gets vaccinations in a timely manner, that we implement those vaccinations as quickly as possible, that we learn from the lessons that we're seeing in first world nations, and make sure that once we have our access to our vaccine, that we do implement as quickly as possible, so that we can begin to enjoy the benefits of having our population vaccinated.
Speaking of the vaccines, over the weekend there have been reports of Pfizer-BioNTech and AstraZeneca both reporting that they have shortage and may not be able to supply as many vaccines as they would have liked to countries like the UK, in the EU, and I believe the US as well. Would that affect how and when the Caribbean gets its supply of the vaccine to be able to roll out that vaccination plan?
It is posing challenges. What is unfortunate is many first world nations have implemented a policy of I want all of mine first, especially those first world nations that have pharmaceutical capacity or are home to some of those companies that you have named. Their policy of I want all of mine first has proven to be not the best policy to have, because in what appears to be hoarding or looking after themselves, which is their own sovereign right, first and foremost, also means that they've either not gotten enough, or in some instances, they've gotten more than they can use in a timely manner, while others are still waiting on whatever little we can get to very quickly implement. So it has not produced equity in dealing with this, but this virus looks at each and every country with the same equity. So I think we need to be looking at it the same way. So I would say the developments are unfortunate. And yes, the policies of some of the first world nations have made it more difficult for countries like Grenada.
The plan that we have, or our expectation, I should say, has us receiving that vaccine in March, I believe was the last hope. Is that still the...
We're looking to have the vaccine by March, mid-February to March, yes. Or to have the first deliveries. It's going to come in multiple phases.
Okay. And there was, I think it was this January, when you facilitated a news conference as well, there was a clip circulating, just a few seconds of the entire conference, and the conclusion most people came to was that you were saying vaccination for COVID-19 would be mandatory for everybody. And that's a conclusion some people got. Are they correct or are they incorrect in saying that vaccines would be mandatory?
I'd say no, and Blossom, you set up the question nicely. Taking a couple seconds of a statement, it was taken out of context. What I said then, and I will say it again, is that there are certain vaccinations in Grenada and throughout the region that are mandatory, and if you don't have it, you cannot attend schools also, like measles, polio vaccines, etc. So that there are various policies with respect to vaccinations. Not all vaccinations are mandatory. I do not see the COVID vaccine being mandatory for the population. However, I do see a trend with many countries in which Grenada may also adopt, which is that in order to travel in or out, you may have to have the vaccine. And the same way now, in order to travel, you need to have a PCR test either before you travel or in coming back in. Whether we have the policy or not, which is being considered, many countries and many first world nations and many of our destination hubs quite likely will have that policy to travel in or out of the US, or to travel in and out of the UK, or maybe travel in and out of Barbados, that you would have to have a proof of vaccination, which would be their right. And it is quite possibly a policy that Grenada would also consider. So from that standpoint, that is sort of the policies that would be initiated with respect to the COVID vaccine specifically.
Would any consideration be given to consulting Cuba for use of their vaccines?
Well, we're in discussions with all plausible or credible manufacturers of vaccines. Cuba is one of those that we are looking at. We still maintain our primary policy, which is that we would be implementing or using a vaccine that has WHO approval, PAHO and WHO approval. So we look with interest at the developments with respect to the Cuban vaccine, but would not contemplate making a move unless and if and when that vaccine were approved by WHO.
And something I was curious about too, let's say the three vaccines, Cuba, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer-BioNTech. Let's say the three vaccines are approved by PAHO, WHO. Would Grenada have all three available? And let's say I come to be vaccinated and I choose which one I want to receive? Like I'm making a purchase of which vaccine I would like to receive, or is it that we're going with only one and that's it?
No, that is a strong possibility that we'll have more than one available. And the COVAX facility, which is the grouping of countries like Grenada, CARICOM countries, most of the Latin America, South American countries, and African countries, is that it would be multiple vaccines approved. But right now, it may be only the one or two that are approved at this point in time. It all depends on how quickly others are approved and the availability of those and also the confidence that the government and the people have in any one of them.
All right. Like I said earlier, I took some questions from our viewers and listeners before you came on. And one of the questions that somebody called about, the person highlighted that one of her friends has to do a surgery at the General Hospital and has been asked to pay for the PCR test, the $410, in addition to the cost of the surgery. And the question was, why is this necessary, that I have to take a PCR before I do surgery?
It would be necessary to take the PCR if determined by the doctors or the hospital, depending on the type of surgery and where the person would be in the ward or so. But the cost of that PCR test in that instance should not be passed on. So off air, I'd be interested in getting the name of the individual, or the individual can contact myself or the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Health. If it is, as you have explained, that the person is here and needs to go into the hospital to receive surgery, then they should not be paying for that PCR test.
You see, well, it's a good thing I asked that question.
Yes.
I received 3 calls of issues, concerns that these viewers have had that they've pointed out before in relation to the medical station in Mount Rich, refurbishment or not facelift. Adding on to the medical station in Wester Hall, a veranda, bus shed, a little shelter. And the gentleman called back in relation to the Lacalome sewage issue that he says has not been addressed as yet. Can you highlight these 3? What's the latest with these 3 issues?
With respect to any and all of our health centers that are due to be refurbished, enhanced, expanded, rebuilt, that project is online. It is January, but we do have quite a few of those health centers down for development or improvement this year, and that will start. I agree, and as Minister of Health, as far as I'm concerned, too, it can't start fast enough. But we are going to have those start this year, this quarter, hopefully by February. It would be individual contractors or so. It goes through a process through Ministry of Implementation and Procurement, etc., to make sure that the people's money, whether it is grant funding from European Development Fund or whether it is taxpayers' dollars, that it is properly spent. With respect to the Lacalome, as recent as Monday, there were discussions with my cabinet colleagues in terms of a way forward to find a solution. And I would expect either through Ministry of Housing, announcements being made on the possible solution going forward. And if not, I would be in communication and we would also volunteer that information. But a solution is being worked on.
The other thing that I wanted, it just flew out of my head. Now I remember. Now that from what I'm seeing and from the numbers that have been reported with 11 active cases, it seems like the cluster that we were experiencing late last year, we are more or less over that hurdle, and we have 11 active cases. And while there are still restrictions in place, calls have been made for the reopening of schools. And somebody has inquired if we intend to once again increase the number of people that can attend funerals and weddings in the near future. So let's first deal with the reopening of schools, why we still have this staggered approach now that we have more or less a cluster under control.
Yes, based on all of our information, all of our finding, and continued testing that we're doing within the community, random testing in the community, the December cluster is closed off, is ended, has been put to bed, so to speak. We will continue to check and ensure. What we've got to recognize with respect to the way moving forward, and that was what I was alluding to in my first statements, is that as we've seen in St. Vincent, in Barbados, in St. Lucia, in Trinidad, in the UK, etc., and that we've seen the strong possibility here too, in particular with these new variants of the virus that are extremely more contagious, is that if someone were to sneak through your net at your borders, the quarantining, etc., if somebody were to sneak in from the north into Grenada, infected, and began to infect someone else socially. And most of the occurrences of infection occur through social gatherings, social activity. There's very little of the infection going on through work-related activity. It's significantly more on the social activity side, individual socializing, restaurants, bars, gathering and mass gatherings, whether it is funerals, weddings, etc. So we have to recognize that if someone sneaked in and were in circulation in Grenada, walking around, visiting, socializing, etc., and they finally got sick where they were sick enough to come to the hospital or health center, or the first or few people that they infected did. By the time these people come forward and we recognize that it's too late to get control of the situation, or extremely difficult to get control of the situation at that point, even if you were able to trace back patient zero, as we say, on the source. It's very difficult because of how contagious these new strains are. And as such, while we have put an end to the cluster, we have to recognize the risk and the potential of one person, the damage that one person breaching quarantine, or one person sneaking in, or one person that we didn't get to or missed out on that cluster outbreak, the damage that can be done if we were to move to as much normalcy as possible too quickly. I think we need to recognize now that this virus has put up what I would like to think is its last desperate effort, but it is its most violent effort with its new variants. And therefore we really can't afford to make any mistakes. We have to recognize that we are all human, all of my team and all of us are human, and it is possible that we, with our own limitations, we may have missed something, or we may allow something to happen. So that is why the curfew continues. And I know many people have said, well, if you're in control of the cluster outbreak in December, why can't we go back to? And the same with the schools, and the same with the size of gatherings, funerals, weddings, and sporting activities or fundraising activities or general social. Independence is coming up because I'm having some independence fêtes and gatherings, etc. Valentine's Day is coming up because I'm having some Valentine's fêtes and gatherings and dinner, etc., and extended hours of socializing and romancing, etc. What we need to recognize is the risk that exists right now, and we should remember the sacrifice we had to make in December with respect to Christmas in order to control. And therefore, the easement that we've gotten since, I think we need to value it. And while we long for further easement and would like further easement, I think we need to adopt a policy of let's accept this, not push too much, because the more you push, the greater the risk that you have to pull all the way back. And we don't want to do that. So let's try and find this period, this iteration of movement and freedoms as our comfort zone moving forward until we can get vaccines or until we can see the risk in our neighboring countries, and therefore the risk to Grenada reduced.
So as of now, no immediate plans to adjust the callings for school or the attendance at schools. I know the official announcement will come from Ministry of Education, but
the official announcement will come from Ministry of Education. Now, schools it's a very difficult, because as I've always said, we need to find the balance between lives and livelihoods. And we're very much aware that while we don't like it, but being asked ourselves as adults to curtail our socializing hours, and for those of us who are in that industry, to curtail those business hours for social activity and stop at 10 to 5, that there won't be any movement that way. Our children's education is different. And while we have been fortunate enough to be in a position to allow virtual classes, virtual teaching, we are very much aware as adults that physical social interaction is extremely important for our children, from the young all the way to the teenagers. It is extremely important. It is what makes us who we are. Those social interactions, we treasure those periods of our life, and they deserve to have that as well, and they should. And we will work with the Ministry of Education and all the stakeholders to try and get as best as possible to that. In-classroom teaching is not just about being in the classroom with the teacher. In-classroom teaching is also that social interaction among our peers, that we know our school days are an important period for us. So we intend to work on that, and I do hope we can find a way. But we also need to take into consideration the risk that is involved as well. So that's why there has been further deliberation on it, and to try and get a better understanding of our current situation as we move forward with this iteration this week, these next couple of days. There will be some random testing of students as well, from preschool all the way up. Because as you remember, in the December cluster, there were certain schools that were closed because of possible interaction or exposure from employees or individuals who may have tested positive, or who themselves were told to quarantine while pending results, or so for a 14-day period. So we're going into some of those schools and those classes and testing some of these students to see on an antigen testing and possibly a PCR testing to see if any of them may have had it. And while we say we have the cluster under control, we will be able to tell from a forensic standpoint or so whether people did have it there, to see how widespread was that possible exposure or that possible risk level. Because in keeping people home and closing those schools for the 2-week period or so, that was able to shut down any possible infection. But it's now to go back and see if there was any infection at that point in time. Once we're able to determine that does play significant importance into our decisions as to how further opening, when further opening or so would happen with the schools, and at what age groups and what levels, etc.
You mentioned earlier about the variants of the virus that are coming out now. Somebody's asking about if we have the latest strain in Grenada, but I know yesterday at Postcab it was said that samples have been collected and sent to CAFA for testing. We expect the results in about 2-3 weeks or so. But
yeah,
Go ahead.
Clarity on that. As you have seen with statements made from St. Lucia, statements made from Barbados, they are able to determine now that they do have that strain in their population in circulation. But as I think the best example there is from St. Lucia, where St. Lucia said that it was from samples from the 14th of December on or around the 14th of December that they're now able to determine. So it does take time for CARFA to do that DNA sequencing and separation to determine which strain of the vaccine. We have sent samples in the last week, in the last 2 weeks to CARFA to do both things. One, to do our regular verification of our level of positivity, and CARFA will also independently test and confirm that yes, they're getting the same level of positivity on those samples, but also now for them to do that DNA sequencing to determine which variant. That takes 2 to 3 weeks to be done. So those results are pending. But that also speaks more to the need for this current iteration and non-easement, etc. In terms of knowing which variant, as you see, St. Lucia just announced what they had for December. So what we're seeing is an understanding which variant. It takes 2 to 3 weeks, possibly 4 weeks to get those results. By then, it's sometimes in some cases it's too late. So we have to treat the situation as though it is in the worst case scenario that quite likely or quite possibly there is someone out there that we haven't found, or there is someone out there who just snuck in, and that what if it is one of those more contagious strains of the virus? So let us be cautious moving forward.
How did we identify the samples that were sent to test for the variant? Random, or did we suspect something? How did we select those? Was it 5 samples?
Well, it's in general, it's travel-related samples. So persons with a travel-related history, ideally individuals with a travel history from the UK, or if we were to have had someone with a travel history from South Africa or from Brazil, those areas where the strains are. But we're also very much aware that because it's out there in other communities, we're sticking also with just travel. Anyone who has come in with and test positive, we are sending those samples randomly to CARFA.
Okay, just curious. All right, it's at this point we're going to take some of our calls. I know the phones have been ringing for a little while. Just wanted to get some of those questions out. So let's now go to the landline for the callers who may have questions for Minister Steele. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, Blossom, and good morning, Minister Steele. My question is regarding the schools and the reopening policy. I remember last we were told that when the schools were open and it was questioned when other businesses were closed, we were told about the resilience of children and their lower infection rate. Has that situation changed? And you mentioned children may be randomly tested. Will parents be notified if their children are to be tested at the school? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Melissa?
With respect to the resilience of children, the situation hasn't changed with respect to children. The situation has changed with respect to variants of the virus, and those variants being more contagious. So that is why there is where this term is being treated differently from last term, because the virus has changed. And most definitely, from a Ministry of Health standpoint, for myself as Minister of Health, children are minors, and therefore the ministry personnel, etc., cannot test any child without the permission, notification, and permission of the parents.
Okay. Let me go to the social media. There was a question on the WhatsApp. Somebody on WhatsApp is asking if the vaccine for COVID-19 is the same for the new strain. Would the vaccine work on all strains or most strains of the virus?
The vaccine works on all strains that we know of right now. That is constantly being tested and verified. We have no information at present that any of the variants won't be captured by the vaccine. As to whether there's going to be a different variant in the next couple of months or weeks, I certainly hope not. But at present, the vaccine works on all variants, and the one way to safeguard the possibility somewhere downstream of this virus mutating into something else that is resilient or immune to the vaccine is for us to get vaccinated as quickly as possible and stamp out the COVID virus.
A WhatsApp question: why are we building a new unit at the present hospital site? It's not to the nation's interest. Spending money on the old hospital site. Won't it be better to build a brand new hospital on a new site where all new departments increase in staff and visitors? We need properly built car parks. Stop wasting the money on the old hospital site.
Well, that's a good question. The fact of the matter is, yes, I would love to have a brand new hospital. A brand new hospital is going to take 5 to 6 years to build. It's going to be extremely costly. In the interim, do we just pause and leave the existing hospital as is because we say we ideally should build a new one and just not maintain it or not improve it and therefore not have any improvement in healthcare until you have a brand new hospital? I don't think so. I think even if tomorrow morning we were to break ground on a new hospital, we would still have to be spending money on maintaining, and if there are any small improvements that we can make in the existing hospital, that we should do so. So the new wing, for instance, is facilitating a state-of-the-art lab facility. Should we have delayed that and only build a brand new hospital in order for us to see improvements in lab? The new wing is going to facilitate a state-of-the-art accident and emergency. The new wing facilitates teaching and administration. The new wing facilitates imaging, brand new imaging, CT scanners for the first time in Grenada, state-of-the-art, one of the best in the OECS region as well. And the new wing is going to facilitate nephrology, so dialysis. The healthcare is urgent and now. So while there is the need to, and it makes sense from the outside if you're just going to be a critique and say, stop wasting money on this existing hospital, just pool all the money together and build a new hospital. In the interim, people suffer. So as a caring government and recognizing the urgency of certain things, you do have to spend on your existing facility. And you should push to make improvements in healthcare in your existing facility while planning on a brand new facility.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom, and to the minister. I've been trained to think, I've been trained to think. If you want to know anything about me, just go online and click on Clyde Bell phone. I've been trained to think. I think the minister is doing well this morning. But, we don't have the vaccines here already.
Okay, thank you, caller.
No, rest assured, caller, the day that the vaccines arrive, we will be making that announcement and letting the nation know. So no, the vaccines are not here as yet. I wish they were, because I would be standing in line to get vaccinated, and I know many others would be, to get the vaccine or to get the first jab, as the UK says. But no, they're not here as yet.
A WhatsApp question: how do you deal with a situation where someone is telling you that they have a license to burn, but on the flip side, the smoke is aggravating your medical condition?
Well, I think that we all need to be responsible individuals within our community. Not sure what they're referring to if they're saying someone has a license to burn or whether they've sought permission. But please let the Environmental Health Department of the Ministry of Health know this situation. Or so if permission was sought and the person is creating a nuisance or health hazard, as the caller is implying, then it is reason for the Environmental Health Department to stop them and to find other means. I, for one, do not subscribe to the burning of bush or refuge at all, anywhere. And as such, I will say that we would be most accommodating to try and stop that. And individuals should instead remove their refuge and place it at our perseverance site, which as well, unfortunately, is on fire. And we are working collectively to put that out. But that is not an excuse for us to be starting more fires and burning refuge elsewhere.
WhatsApp, hold on, let me see, do I have a... Good morning, caller? Okay, no, I don't have a call. So somebody is asking on the WhatsApp, why are the Grenada's PCR tests so expensive compared to other countries in the Caribbean, where St. Vincent is $40 for visitors and $30 for locals, US?
I don't know how St. Vincent has come up with their price, how much subsidizing or so they are doing with their PCR testing. I do know that we have come up with the best possible price based on the cost. And I think what individuals need to do is to make general comparisons and not single out any one particular thing. It's not simply just a PCR test. Look at, on the flip side, Grenada government spends more with respect to social development, housing, etc., than any of those other governments. So it is possible that maybe St. Vincent government has allocated budget to subsidize the price of PCR, and that Grenada government instead has offered the economic support as best as possible, as we did last year, and to continue with our various social support programs. We have housing developments that are opening up despite the COVID challenges, etc. So I think it has to be looked holistically. For the traveler, they may be just comparing PCR to PCR, but I think you need to compare country to country. You know, like I said, a specific example is housing projects, low-income housing projects, still continuing and opening as we speak. Is the fact that this government has not laid off a single public servant and has paid all on time during these challenges. So it's not just PCR tests. I think you have to look at the bigger picture, and that if this government chooses to say that we're not going to subsidize the price of PCR so that we can maintain the other social programs as best as possible or even better than other countries, then I think that is a logical route to go. Because the price that individuals pay for PCR tests is based on their desire or need to travel. The community testing is not charged to the public. It is when an individual wants to go travel to get a visa, an individual wants to go travel to visit family, or is traveling in to visit family, or to come back home or so because they were away on vacation or work, etc. Or if there are unfortunate circumstances where individuals need to travel for medical. And in those instances, as best as possible, we would consider and have been waiving that fee if it is for a medical emergency or so.
Final caller of the show. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning. I just want to ask the minister if he could please put a machine, a mammogram machine in the general hospital that the women of this country will love to use the government facility. He has people like to use the private, but please, could you help us? There is a lot of women in this country need to get a little check out of the breast. Would you please place one in the general for us? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Minister?
Yeah, caller, I think Blossom, that caller has touched on a very important issue there. And I think what I would like to do is to have maybe our Director of Hospital Services, if your station would facilitate, have her come and speak to not just mammogram and the services being offered, but also for pap smear and all the other tests that women should take to prevent the various forms of cancer that are plaguing our women and taking the precious lives of our mothers and sisters and daughters. So yes, it is to speak to all of those and to inform the caller and everyone else out there of what is available and the need to come and get the test.
I most definitely will appreciate and welcome if she's available to appear on the program, definitely. There's a Facebook question. Is there a COVID team in Carriacou and PT Martinique, or teams in Carriacou and PT Martinique, and is there a quarantine facility on the sister isles as well?
There is a COVID team in Carriacou and PT Martinique. There are wardens on the ground. Members of the community are also involved in our decision-making process and advising as we move forward and reporting. And there are quarantine facilities in Carriacou. There are challenges, and we have only allowed individuals to quarantine. That's separate from individuals who come in on their boats and stay on their boats for quarantine. But an individual coming in by air is only allowed to spend their quarantine time in Carriacou if they enter Carriacou privately. They cannot take the airline with other people on it, and they can't take the Osprey just like that to travel up. They must either spend time in Grenada to quarantine here first, or if they land in MBIA and are able to charter SVG Air or so directly with just themselves to Carriacou, then we have facilitated that.
Any final thoughts, Minister, as we wrap?
Well, just to say that these are difficult times. These are difficult times for any and all governments. We are seeing our death rates soar. We are not just in the region, but first world nations as well. We have done well. We have not been perfect here in Grenada, but we have done well. It has come at a severe cost to many, if not all. We've all paid a price. We've all paid a price financially. We've all paid a price psychologically. We've all paid a price socially. We need to value the price that we've paid. We need to recognize that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel with respect to national vaccination, international vaccination. We need to drive forward to that, eyes wide open, and making sure that we get the right vaccine and that we are aware of all of the information about the vaccine, which the ministry will be making available, and other countries are also doing the same. And just to hold the line between now and then. There is the urge and there is the desire to relax. There is the urge, there is the desire to take a break, to take a breath. And that's all it takes sometimes to let this thing called COVID in. And we don't want that. So as difficult as it may be, we need to maintain our hope. We need to maintain our pride in what we have accomplished. But we need to maintain our discipline to get out of this. We don't want, while it feels darkest before the dawn, we don't want it truly to between now and the end of COVID for it to be our darkest moments with respect to COVID infection in our countries, as we are seeing happening in other countries. So we want to avoid that, and therefore we have to take this additional sacrifice. And I'm asking all to understand and to work with us. We've tried as best as possible to allow some form of social activity. I believe, like any of us, that it is necessary for us to be able to interact socially. It is necessary for some of those businesses as well to try and continue to provide employment as best as possible. It is not ideal in terms of the hours for them, but the goal and the mission, primary goal and primary mission, was never to provide ideal conditions for employment. The primary goal and primary mission was to protect the population, that still is to protect the population as best as possible, finding that balance between life and livelihoods. We can't tip the scale one way or the other too much. We must find that balance. And in finding a balance, it means that neither is going to have their optimal solution. To have the optimal solution in protecting of lives would be to close everything down. To find the optimal solution of livelihoods would be to open everything up. And that's not possible. So we have to find that medium line.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Minister. Continue doing what you're doing. Stay safe and stay COVID-19 free.
Thank you, and same to you, Blossom, and to all of your viewers and listeners. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Minister of Health Nickolas Steele, our guest this morning, shedding some light on various issues. We thank him once again for being our guest, and thank you, our viewers and listeners, for tuning in to The Point this morning. Always appreciate your listenership, your viewership, and your time. That's the end of the program and the end of my time here with you for today. But once God spares, I'll be back with you tomorrow, Thursday, God willing. Stay safe, stay COVID-19 free, be COVID-19 smart, and have yourselves a blessed and productive Wednesday.